Hello, everybody. My name's Milan Starcic. Welcome to Freedom Rising, a podcast dedicated to empowering individuals on the journey to personal growth, lasting serenity, and freedom from addiction. Tune in and join the movement. Your journey to freedom starts here. We neither represent, promote, or demote any 12-step program or organization. We are merely souls on the path of recovery with the desire to expand our lives and experiences and share them with you. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 222nd Recovery Freedom Rising podcast. I'm Milan Starcic with co-host Ryan G. Ryan, I'm honored to have you on here for the first time. It's kind of been a long time coming, just done a lot of podcasts with your partner Shannon, and I was really looking forward to getting to know you at some point. So today's our first chance at this, and if you would like to tell everybody a little bit about yourself, help us get to know you, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, thanks, brother. Super blessed to be here. A little bit about me. I'm a person in long-term recovery, 10 treatment centers, in and out of jail, multiple deaths. I think I start with that because I think I'm super fortunate, super blessed just to be here. Another part about me, obviously, Shannon's partner, which is super blessed to be that. Another amazing person in long-term recovery. Father of two. I got a beautiful 12-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old son. And I think that's important because during my active addiction, I kind of, I lost the right to be a father. It was something that I think sometimes I'll default and say that addiction took those things away from me, but very much like I gave those things away for my addiction, like I gave everything else away. So yeah, excited to be here, excited to jump into the topic, and I appreciate you having me.
And one thing I wanted to bring up was like you work in the field of recovery, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I
Yeah.
appreciate you. Wasn't sure if we were going to jump into careers, but yeah, I'm super blessed to work in the field in a very specific, I guess, capacity. The organization that I work for operates the majority of they're called recovery communities out here in
Yep.
Alberta, which is like large, long-term, high-capacity treatment centers where you can stay at for over a year, and they're usually anywhere from 75 to 100 beds. So you think about that continuum of care, especially with the crisis out there right now, the 30-day, 60-day treatment centers just aren't cutting. And the team
Yeah.
that I actually work on is really cool. We provide treatment centers inside correctional institutions.
Oh,
So
wow.
we have taken over entire units. If you think about your typical, if anyone on this podcast has done time or maybe done some H&I work inside the institutions, we've taken over an entire unit inside multiple prisons across the province, and we operate like high intensity, high dose treatment centers where inmates apply and they stay in our unit until their release date. So they never go back to general population.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
And inside that it's very much like a treatment center with a program where you're doing group and step work and everything along that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's based off of what's called the therapeutic community model, which is, as we all know, for those of us that are in the 12-step rooms, like the idea of recovery capital, but specifically that we heal in community. So it's a high accountability unit where all of our addictive behaviors and in that setting, criminal behaviors are addressed with
Mhm.
continual feedback. But the easiest way to say it is that we believe that the community is the agent for change.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so now I'm going to ask you a question. I ask everybody, and it's always different for everybody. So I like to ask this question just to show somebody if there's a newcomer watching the show that that their turning point might still be yet to come. But so I asked the question, what was the point where the program sparked a recovery fire in your heart, where it went from I have to I love to?
That's a great question. Thanks. You know what? I can think of two distinct points.
Yep.
So come from a family of six.
Okay.
Well, eight, but six. There's six kids in my family, five boys, one girl. Three of us are in recovery. My older brother just took 14 years sober. And I think my first attempt at recovery, that fire was sparked in me because at the time my older brother was about, I think, 4 years sober, and I got to witness all the blessings, all the promises that he was living to the program. So that was the initial kind of, a lot of people, and I've experienced it in the field, and I'm sure you see it in the rooms too. There's this natural resistance that kind of comes up towards 12-step work and the God language and
Mm.
all these different things. I'm super blessed, and it's nothing that I've done, that I had a family member that set this example that made the program seem super appealing.
Yeah,
Uh,
wow.
yeah,
That,
yeah.
that,
And then I would say it was probably uh I had kind of a second, we'll call it like a spiritual awakening. Um, and it was more of like the educational variety as I really leaned into the step work, but I'd say it was treatment center 10. I did 10 treatment centers and it was the last
mm,
one. Where that psychological shift really happened, but I noticed that, I was waking up happy, right? I
yeah.
was waking up back in love with myself. I was waking up, wanting to be of service, wanting to be a father, or that just desire to live was totally stripped from me.
That's amazing. I'll feel like, gosh, so that leads right into our topic. I mean, of
Mhm.
grace, like having that family member as that positive example, I feel like is almost a part of an act of grace in itself. So everybody out there, today's topic is grace. I asked Ryan, what topics or what topic options would you like? And this was one of the options. And then right after that, in the few days after that, I had it come up and come up and come up. And I was like, man, I'm pretty sure that we should do this one just because it was like I couldn't look somewhere without seeing or talking about grace, and I thought, wow, okay, like this is a sign for this. So, would you like to tell everybody what grace means to you and why you were happy to come talk about that here today?
Yeah, absolutely, brother. I think I appreciate that because I was thinking like I think it's super important for this topic that we kind of create a baseline or almost what's the definition that we're going to move forward with
Hmm.
grace for this podcast because I think a lot of people have a different understanding of it, and I know I certainly did until for me, my definition of grace is based off of a relationship with what I call God, and that definition is simply unmerited favor, like unearned favor, and the reason why that appeals to me so much is that over the course of my recovery journey, but especially and like a lot of us in recovery, a very traumatic childhood and really abusive marriage, um, the concept of grace was super foreign to me. And as I tried to strip those layers of shame and guilt and unworthiness as I progressed in my recovery, I realized that healing those things and dealing with those things wasn't going to come from any power that Ryan had.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I love that. For so um, here we go. I'm going to look at the freely given and unmerited favor and love of God. That's that's what it says the definition of grace is, which pretty much, matches unmerited, unearned. Uh, and I certainly couldn't see it in my life till I got in the program. I wasn't in a state of gratitude before I got into treatment. I was the last 6 months, man, or even last couple years. It was going downhill so hard. It was going downhill so hard, and I felt like I was the victim. I was the prince of having a pity party, and and all these great things were in my life that now I have gratitude for that I couldn't see. And but the first act of grace that I would say I recognized as an act of grace so my clean date is October 1st, 2023. But on the night of September 30th, well, in the morning of September 30th, really, uh, I had went to bed. I'd been at a conference. I had not slept, for days and days and days. And all of a sudden I woke up and I was like, there was part of me shutting off. I could feel there was part of me that didn't have oxygen past it and I was dying and I was able to gasp, get me to, get an ambulance here to the people that were in the room where I was. And, surviving that night was really that was an act of grace because I died and came back, and like you had said earlier in yours, you died. I was awake the entire time, and I'm telling you, anybody who gets to pass out while dying, lucky you, because being awake while dying is a horrifying experience for me. It was,
Absolutely.
like, and then I was very resistant. I didn't have that example that you had of the person in the program and it changing their life. So when I got to treatment, I thought I was going to jail. Like I thought it was like a jail. I'm like, your new inmates here, and they're like, the door's unlocked, buddy. Like, what are you talking about? I'm like, your new inmates here, and and I was expecting it to be like some kind of punitive thing. Like I had no clue, right? And there I see these people laughing and smiling, and because everybody at the treatment center when I got there had been there 4 to 6 weeks, but I could see this light and this laughter and this magic in their eyes, and I was just like, talk about wanting some of that, and then just so they set a fabulous example of hard working on your program. And so when I showed up, I was like, "Oh, you work hard on your program, and you get freedom and laughter and love and life." And so that was my example. And I'll tell you, like, freedom's not free, but it's there for anybody who wants to work for it. And but the understanding of the concept of grace is, for me, it's learning how to see what unconditional love actually looks like. Because I think that inside my addiction, love was a commodity. Love was transactional almost in every respect, and it's only inside this program, one of my life's purpose now is to learn how to love completely, to love without any strings. One of the things that I kind of hold my day up to is that First Corinthians 13 on love, and love keeps no record of wrongs. Like
Mhm.
that eliminates the transaction right there.
Yeah. I
And
love that you brought that up because one of my questions that I have for you later is around the idea of like unconditional and transactional relationships
yeah,
in love. Yeah.
yeah. So we might as well just jump into the questions. I'm super glad to hear part of your story. I'm super glad to meet you. I always wonder what somebody's partner's like, and I know that you've probably been there in the background of quite a few episodes, and
Absolutely.
yeah, and so maybe one day we'll get you guys on here together, and also I think we could almost do an episode just on what's happening inside your work and how it's different from other things, to maybe let people in Alberta know that there's more out there than they think,
Totally. Yeah, I
because
think that would be pretty amazing.
because I do think, like for someone like me, my resistance was thinking I was going to like God jail. Like
Mhm.
that was my like and it just wasn't that. It was like, treatment was probably some of the greatest 5 weeks in my life.
Mhm.
And had I been able to go for longer, I certainly would have. Okay. So my first question, the big book suggests that our greatest gifts was the bottom that forced us to look upward. Looking back, can you see how the moments you felt most abandoned were actually the moments grace was positioning you for a greater surrender?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think first I think this is probably like one of the most dangerous beliefs around the idea of grace and God that we have to suffer a certain amount
Hmm.
before he's going to help us.
Yeah.
Right. So I kind of want to set the stage for that because I don't think that God provided me or taught me a lesson through my bottom,
Hmm.
whether that was dying. I mean, I was homeless for quite a few years in my active addiction too. Um, but do I think that he has very much used those experiences to allow me to be of service and used all those low points that have now transformed into gifts? Like
Hmm.
that is like the ultimate. Like I've gotten so much favor, so much grace in my life today because of those bottoms.
Hmm.
Right? I think about specifically maybe the work that I do. One of the things that is a really important piece for it is that I help a lot of men that are navigating the family court system and victims of domestic violence. Like those are some of the lowest points in my active addiction, but it's something that uh, um, fills me up the most in my recovery.
Yeah, like you're the only person who can understand what they're going through in an actual way. You know,
Totally.
it's like an addictions counselor who's never been addicted to anything. It's like it's a little bit hard to imagine that they could understand where we've been or what's happened, right?
Hmm.
I was engaged to a lady who for 2.5 years hid her crazy verbal and physically abusive side. And our relationship ended with her hitting the side of my head so hard, my glasses broke my nose. And I'll tell you, like, guys are in a very vulnerable position when a woman gets violent. You know,
Hmm.
because that woman can just lie. That woman can turn around, punch herself in the face, and we go to jail. You know?
Yeah, I think there's a reason we're on this call together. That I mean, we don't have to. I know it's not the topic, but I think yeah, my the last interaction with the mother of my children ended in her actually stabbing me in the head in front of the kids and being charged with assault with a deadly weapon.
Yeah.
Um, and at the time, I was a professional bodybuilder. I was a 300-pound man, and I remember the years of therapy and the years of group work and the years of healing and EMDR and all those different modalities to come to terms with the fact that what actually happened to me was wrong, right?
Hmm.
It was very much, and you talk about the idea of grace, it was very much, well, you're a drug addict, so you deserve these things,
Hmm.
right? My marriage and multiple other examples in my life are very much the opposite of grace, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was punitive, it was consequence based.
You know, though, like, I mean, I've had one of my good friends, Laura. She's the like hands down best best gratitude in all circumstances person I've ever met. And she always says the lessons and the blessings. And you know, some things take a few years for us to see the blessings of, you know, or the lessons of, right? Um, but I do truly believe now that it's as important to know what we don't want and won't accept in our life as it is to know what we will, you know? And those are some really hard lessons, super painful, physically, emotionally, everything. You know, like I was just like, I'd prefer not to see or be around another woman for a year and a half because every time I'd see a woman, I'd be like, whoa, I'm scared. Like I'm just like this is gonna hurt me in some way, you know. And you can't just stereotype an entire gender and hide away for
Absolutely.
the rest of your life. But it takes some healing after that, you know.
Well, when we talk about the idea of grace, like that healing, that gift, because I think you're in a relationship right now, right?
Yeah, I'm married. Yeah.
Yeah. So that like that gift that's been given to you to be back in an intimate, healthy relationship. I mean, I don't doubt that you did a lot of work, but where did that effort come from? Where did that strength come from? Like, that all comes from God. That's God's grace, right? It's not
Yeah.
like because Milan's so amazing or Ryan's this. the superstar, right? Right.
Yeah.
Because we allowed ourselves to be a vessel that he could show up through us.
Yeah, exactly. And so, okay, so looking back, can I see how the moments I felt most abandoned were actually moments of grace, positioning me for a greater surrender? I wouldn't have changed if I didn't die that night. I'm telling you right now, there was so many things that my family had had interventions. I remember sitting at my first intervention thinking, man, if this would only end sooner so I could go do another rib. Like literally planning my usage while promising my sobriety. And like I was powerless. But it took me 17 and a half years of struggling with that powerlessness, to finally, like, I remember, that this was like the grace of that experience was that I woke up the day after that, and I was like, oh, it's all right for it to be over now. I don't have to lie anymore. Like, there's no more lying when you've died in a hospital. There's no more like, this problem isn't as big as you think it is, Like, you can't bullshit the level of your usage when you just used enough to kill yourself.
It's it's interesting you say that, but I have and did multiple times.
Well,
I,
but the only person you were fooling was yourself. Okay, like,
totally, totally. Like I can think of like at 18, I was coming home from, it was the night before we moved from, I grew up in the lower mainland of BC,
yeah, yeah.
and it was the night before we were moving to Calgary,
Mm.
and went out with my friends partying all night. And I was in my mom's brand new car and got up at 5 in the morning because we needed to drive all the way to Alberta and nodded off behind the wheel, drove into oncoming traffic, got ran over by a car. Entire car gets demolished. The engine ends up on my lap. Uh, and I'm in the hospital. My brother, who's still in active addiction at the time, breaks me out because I was scared they're going to take blood work and ruin my mom's insurance and all those things. And
Whoa.
at no point in that process did I think I should stop smoking heroin. Like
Yeah,
it was just like I should have got some more sleep.
yeah.
Like at no point. And I think that's the insanity, right? And the denial and delusion of our disease that shows up. And I mean, that pattern continued to repeat itself in multiple different ways in my active addiction. But I think, I mean, but that gift that you were given, right, of essentially death.
Yeah, and when I went into treatment and they're like, here's the steps, and I was like I looked at step one, and I'm like, I am there right now. Like there was not, the only hint of a reservation I would say I had for the first 5 days I was in there was like my mom has had a couple kinds of cancer, and I was like, well, when my mom dies, I don't know how I'm going to be able to handle that. 5 days in, the options took us to a couple meetings outside of the facility. A guy comes in, Josh. Shout out to Josh, dude, for helping me with this reservation. He comes in, he's like, my mom just died of cancer. He's like, man, was it ever amazing for her to die, seeing me clean, how much I can honor her by staying clean, how the people in the program helped me out through this with her. And I was like, oh, so your mom can die and it can be okay,
Totally.
you know? And like, if anything, that was another moment of grace right there, that it was like, hey, you don't have to hold on to that reservation and let yourself die, you know?
I think, and I don't want to inappropriately bring grace, but like if we're using that lens and everything that we're talking about, like that gift, that favor that you received from Josh, there's not,
Yeah.
there's nothing you did. You just
No, that's what I mean.
you showed up at a meeting that a treatment center told you to go to, that you were
Yeah.
probably resistant to go to in the first place.
You
Right?
know what? By that point, I was fully embracing it all,
You had
but
submitted.
I had, it right after arriving there, it just was a series of like what I would call, magical events that I just started embracing it. I was finally beat down, man. I was finally admitted I was powerless and my life was unmanageable, and I was like, it just opened my mind and my willingness was on full bore. You know, it was like throw anything at me because I'll try it because nothing I had done had worked.
I
You
love
know,
it. Beautiful.
okay, you got a question for me?
I do, brother. I do. So when we define grace as God's unmerited favor, how does that challenge the recovery mindset or your recovery mindset that says, I have to earn my healing or be good enough before I'm worthy of freedom?
So I'm gonna relate this question to something that occurred for me because it's been an important turning point. I surrendered my addiction wholeheartedly, man. I have not had one moment where I've had a compulsion to use. Like, and I consider that nothing short of miraculous. You know, like if there's an act of grace, it's for sure that because that was all I thought about before. Um, but what happened was, is the part of the wreckage of my past was financial. Like real financial problems. We were coming to a point back in the spring where it was looking like we were going to lose our house. I built this house, man. Like talk about letting things go, but having an attachment. I have an attachment for this house. It has my fucking blood in the walls. You know what I mean? Like I do. And in nor does our family want to move. And so I was experiencing this stress about that. I was struggling with my defects and my shortcomings. And this guy came on the podcast. This guy came on the podcast that I had met down in Mexico in February, and we call it the Great Resurrendering of March 2025 because at the very end of the podcast, he said, guys, he said, somebody said this to me really early on, and it's something that, has been one of the greatest things that I've ever heard. He said, this isn't a program of self-improvement. This is a program of surrender. And man, it was like he hit me in the head with a 2x4. Like I was just like, all of what was going on with me was entirely a lack of surrender. It was like I had this certain little list where I was like, I don't want to bother God with that. I don't want to bother my higher power with that. I can do this one. You just take care of my addiction and maybe that one over there. But and so I started this real deep dive into learning more about surrender at that point, into uh, into making myself pray gratitudes, even for things that I felt like I didn't have. Like faith I wasn't feeling when I was feeling fear about things. Anger like that wasn't relieved, but I'm feeling love instead of that. And so I starting my day with that, and that combined with just trying to surrender on a greater thing, and then starting a process of I don't know if you know about it, but like two-way prayer. It's something that the Oxford group used to do. That was kind of pre-AA even. And I went to the AA conference in Vancouver this summer. I met a guy from Texas who swore to me that that had saved his life. And so, anyway, I embarked on a journey of trying to learn about that, and I've done it pretty much every day except for 5 days since the second week of July. And it's like those three things have really pointed me in the direction of what I can do and what I need to surrender. Like because really, like, grace is coming in when I get out of the way. Like, and it's quite often my own ego that's blocking grace in my life at different points, right? And so it's like step 6, we're entirely ready, right? Well, I can get entirely ready, but that doesn't mean God's coming at lunchtime from 12 to 1 to get rid of those shortcomings. It means that God's going to deliver grace when I'm the right vessel for it too, you know? And so um, I do agree with you about the unmeritedness or unearned, you know, unearned. But I do think that uh, there's times where we can cut ourselves off from it. You know, like
Mhm.
I think like, oh man, when if I put a substance into my body, I am instantly disconnected in some way. And it doesn't mean that I won't receive an act of grace, but I think that I might not even notice it.
Totally. And I appreciate they bring that up because and I think that's where, for myself, that I struggled a lot with this concept because it doesn't mean that the grace isn't flowing.
Yeah,
Doesn't mean that it's not all around me. It's because I've either, like you said, put something in myself, or it's my ego, or I love that you related this to the concept of surrender, right? If you think about, and I know for myself, and I'm hoping that you can relate, think about the most challenging areas of your life, right?
yeah,
Maybe it's financial, maybe it's, you know, challenging relationship with my kid's mother. The things that I am currently fighting are the things that I haven't fully surrendered,
yeah,
right? He can bring both of us back from the dead,
yeah,
right? And the pits of hell of our addiction or all the other things that they, make you a great husband, right? All those different things, but he can't deal with this thing, right?
yeah. It's like that's the insanity of my brain still is
Totally.
that is that it's like I am fully saying my surrendered addiction is a miracle in my life,
Mhm.
but yet a miracle can't happen for anger.
Yeah,
Like,
which is like you think about it, it's no big deal.
yeah,
It's no big deal.
yeah,
Or you think about like the concept of like money, right? Like
yeah,
a divine God doesn't understand the concept of lack. It doesn't
yeah,
exist. But we're so
yeah.
caught up in that, you know, worldly materialism that we're worried about whether we're going to be able to make our next mortgage payment. But he operates in a realm of abundance.
Exactly, and that's I've held that mindset even before I got into the program. Is like you either believe in scarcity or abundance.
Hmm.
There's no kind of scarce and there's no kind of abundant. Like
Hmm.
like you're either on or off in that thing, and one of the things for sure for me is like one of my tattoos right here. It says, "Good things happen to us every day." And it's that there is good things happening to us whether we want to acknowledge them. Like, man, me taking a breath right now, I just had pneumonia, and trust me, when you can't breathe, breath becomes a pretty valuable part of your day, but most days you don't even acknowledge it.
And it's not whether you deserve it or not. It's not whether I
No.
deserve it or not. These things are just constantly pouring into us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's whether we open our eyes to it. And that's, one of the things that I say all the time is, you know people are coming into the program and they're like, "Oh, I'm not feeling grateful. I don't want to be on the gratitude list. I'm not feeling grateful today." And the thing about gratitude is that it's one of the few muscles that you can flex and make stronger. Like it's the day you don't feel gratitude that you should dig. Get out the shovel. Don't just let yourself sit in the hole, because it's like there's things to be grateful for all the time. It's just whether we're acknowledging it.
Totally. Well, and I think for me, like it's like coming back to that concept of gratitude isn't, I'm not pulling it from within. It's just like allowing God's gratitude to flow through me, right? The
Yeah.
wisdom, the knowledge, the understanding of it is something that God brings through me. Like I think as you were talking earlier, I was thinking about, for me, I really had to remove the power dynamic that existed between me and my understanding of a higher power. I think a lot of us come into the rooms with different experiences with religion or
Mm,
spirituality and different things like that. But this
mm,
idea that, I'm going to get a blessing once I'm worthy, once I've earned it, right? Right,
yeah.
and you brought up the concept of lack and scarcity, that there's this almighty, all-knowing, omnipotent, omnipresent God up there. Okay, if we've done a proper step 2, 3, we've accepted that, but then we have to get into an intimate relationship with God, right? That he's pulling us into, but that simple idea, that he's up there with like this sack of gifts, right? And blessings,
Yeah.
right? And I think this is the way that I had to really simplify it for myself that, he's not up there going, well, uh, uh, Milan was great today, so I'm going to give him a whole bunch. That guy John Smith over there he was all right, so he's going to get a little. And, that Ryan asshole, like he's really not showing up, so I'm going to hold back.
Hmm.
Right? That makes no sense,
Yeah.
right? When you understand that, like he doesn't understand, like he doesn't think in forms of duality, right? This thing
Hmm.
is pure love, right? All the gifts pour
Hmm.
from. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's just like what I do is I imagine like I'm out in our upstairs loft right now, and there's a bunch of windows, and I imagine that literally this room is filled with blessings and gifts, and like the windows are exploding, the walls are popping out, like I'm
Yeah.
surrounded by them. But have I emptied myself, right, of the unworthiness, of the shame, of the
Hmm.
guilt, uh, of the lack of self-esteem, of all those things to allow myself to be filled up with that. So when I can remove that power dynamic of he's granting
He's not Santa
something.
Claus.
Yeah. And I think, and oh yeah, I mean, we could get into all the like societal myths and all those
Yeah.
different things around those things that plant those seeds in our heads. But like when you can really open up yourself to this idea that like the tap is always on, the cup is overflowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so now, did you just answer your question? I know I did,
I
but
think I kind of did a little
yeah.
bit.
Well, okay,
Yeah.
but I mean, if there's something else you want to say on it before we go on to another one.
I think, I got another question that relates to it, so I'm not gonna, there's something I could jump into, but I'm gonna leave it because it'll be a gooder.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Mhm.
Okie dokie. I got another question here for you. So NA's Living Clean teaches that we're not responsible for our disease, but we are responsible for our recovery. If you truly accepted that you're already forgiven, how would you change the way you surrender your current guilt to your higher power?
That is it's a great question that can spark a lot of thought. Um, and I very much believe that. I very much believe that just like any other disease, if I was to get cancer or diabetes, something like that, I'm not responsible for that piece, but I'm very much responsible for my recovery around it.
Mm.
Um, Could you repeat the last half of the question?
Sure. If you truly accept that you're already forgiven, how would you change the way you surrender your current guilt to your higher power?
Mm. I don't think I guess I'd have to relate it to like early recovery versus current, because I think I've
Okay.
completely surrendered the
Yeah.
guilt. But I mean, guilt was I think it was a scapegoat in early
Hmm.
recovery, right? I wasn't surrendering it. It was, it was, it was something that I kind of, I don't want to say held as a badge of honor, but it's something that kept me sick, right? Especially like the failures as a father.
Hmm.
I think that was something that really, it was a deep wound that I had, but I think it also became an excuse for why I couldn't show up in relationships in a healthy way, or why I didn't love myself a certain way because, I'd let down two amazing little kids that didn't deserve that. Um, for now, I think the simplest way that I can explain this is, and I relate the guilt piece or shame or any of those really heavy parts of our recovery that we have to work our way through, is that, I mentioned the cup analogy earlier, but with my cup, and if I think of myself that way, if Ryan's filled up to here with shame and guilt, that leaves no room for God. Right? And I think that's the beauty of what the steps do, right? As you work through the steps, is that it allows us to empty ourselves of all those things so that we can get filled back up with God. And I think, and any step that I do, I always view it through the lens of how is this step bringing me into closer, more intimate relationship with God.
Nice.
I think I answered that in a roundabout way.
I totally think you did in an amazing way, actually. I loved your insight on that one. Um, yeah, so for me, if I truly accepted that I am already forgiven, how would I change the way I surrender my current guilt to my higher power? Well, like one of my problems coming in that I was raised Catholic, and
Join the
I'll
club,
tell
buddy.
you, I'll tell you, man. Like I would feel guilty working a 14-hour shift and buying myself a chocolate bar after. Like weird little tiny things that were like, you don't deserve that. That's not what you should be doing. Like, and so it's been a big journey for me to get to self forgiveness. Like I think that I can very much easily or very more easily forgive others than myself. Like, because I see all the legwork of the defect going on inside myself. And, and so it got to a point back in, gosh, I think it was October. And, I realized that I was doing a podcast on procrastination. And I realized that one of the root sources of procrastination for me was a lack of self forgiveness. And that was holding me back. And so I walk a lot. That's one of my exercises. And I was walking in the dark, like I do because of time and the changing of the seasons. So I'd be out there walking in the dark and and doing my prayers with the stars and the trees and everything around me. And I was like, I started praying for the willingness to forgive myself, you know?
Yes.
And man, I burst out in tears, man. And it was like for about half an hour. And then it was just like, there was some grace that occurred right in that moment. And I really think that there's a lot more grace waiting for you than you understand or acknowledge. For me, when I say you there, I wasn't talking to you, but I was meaning for me.
Mm.
And and that's why step 6 is really such a fundamentally powerful step that most people like. I remember being in treatment, being like, "Yeah, I'm entirely ready. Okay, let's move on." you
Hmm.
know but it's like what I've come to see is that my part in things changing is me understanding what it takes for it to change you know and it also takes a willingness on my part to walk through the fire for that change to occur. Like in order for me um to forgive myself entirely, right? Like I have to start loving myself.
Hmm.
Like I have to change that inner dialogue about who I am. And so, if I'm not there supporting the vision of how that grace would change my life, I'm going to miss it entirely.
Totally, brother. Totally. You said
Yeah.
something so powerful. I wrote it down earlier when you were talking. You said you prayed for the willingness. And
Yeah.
I think it's so often that we see, and it sounds like it was part of your experience. It was definitely part of my journey. That what and any of the principles of the program, it was all ran on self-will. Like this idea that
Mm.
like Ryan needs to become more willing, and
Yeah.
magically I'm gonna try hard enough to get
Yeah.
more willing, but understanding that like willingness, right? The wisdom of willingness, the gift of willingness is something that God grants me.
Yeah.
Right? It's not that one day, if I, the same idea, I'm a big gym guy, that if
Mm.
I hit the willingness gym hard enough, right, that
Yeah.
magically that this thing's just going to show up in my life and understanding that, like that, and I think that we have to practice these skills because I think a
Yeah.
lot of us don't understand honesty, willingness, all the different principles, love, right, surrender. I think that we have to practice those skills, but like God grants us those things, right? He
Mhm.
grants us. the self-discipline, the effort, all those things so that we can actually manifest these skills in our life. But I think there's the simplicity of what you said there because it just completely changes the dynamic, right? Of
Mhm.
me to God, God, God.
And like, it was it was fundamental in the turning point for me there. But it also like what it did for me was it showed me what step six really meant. Even on after my third round of steps, it really showed me what step six means, you know? And like sometimes the most that we can ready ourselves is that prayer. Like sometimes that's all the control we have over that, you know? Like I don't know if you've ever heard of the Course in Miracles. It's one of the
Ah,
things,
brother, I've done a
yeah,
bunch of work in the and oh my gosh, the oh, I have it in my Audible. Marianne Williams'
I
book.
was just gonna say her name,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But and about loving completely.
Hmm.
Like, and what I've come to realize is that, surrender, loving completely, forgiveness, like if I am loving completely, there's not a spiritual principle that I'm leaving out, man.
Totally.
And it's just like, okay, let's just simplify it because if I just start thinking about like 40 spiritual principles, dude, I'm scattered. And
Mhm.
like jack of all principles, master of none. But if I just focus, if I just filter my actions and my responses through love, like was that loving? And if it comes up short, I need to go make an amends right away. And I need to
Totally.
figure out what I'm amending, you know? and and this book on two-way prayer that I'm reading just a couple weeks ago, one of the things it said is that love is the only vehicle that connects us to our higher power and to others. So without love, we are living in isolation, and so
Mhm.
any moments that we're not feeling love, we're also not connected, and so that's where the importance for me of that surrender to return to a state of love or gratitudes to create a state of love is really important, right?
Totally. And I think for your listeners too, like, and I know I default to like my God is, Jesus in a biblical understanding, but all of us when we take a step back, whether it's religious based or spiritual based, I think we can all come to probably some form of agreement that the understanding of a higher power is this concept of pure love, right? It's
Yes.
overflowing love. And we can remove all the arguments and all those other pieces. And I think that we could all agree on that, hey, that's the baseline, right? Higher power, God, spirituality, nature, creator, whatever you
Mm,
want to call it, is pure love, right? And I
mm,
think I think you bring up this super important point, especially as addicts. If we
yeah,
want to overwhelm ourselves with 40, 50 spiritual principles, it's the same way with our values, right? You
mhm,
do a typical values exercise, and they'll say narrow your values down to 7 values.
yeah,
That's the lens that you're supposed to make every decision in your life through. So whether it's as simple as going through the drive-through or picking a partner, like how is that possible to run things, right? If I narrow it down to 1 or 2 values, one or two thing like
yeah,
love, right?
mhm,
Then I can actively practice this thing and pull God's wisdom into
yeah.
all those situations throughout my life. So I think I love how you come back to like the simplicity of it.
It's otherwise, man, I just go crazy like I was crazy.
Totally. And
Yeah,
as drug addicts, like I think, and I say that term like in a really loving way because I'm proud to be a recovered drug addict.
yeah, uh,
But we want to. I always think of it like a math equation. Like we want to complex the hell out of it. It's
yeah,
1 + 1 = 2. It's not advanced calculus. This thing that we're doing.
mm,
Like the beautiful life that we get to live is literally the simplest. Doesn't mean it's
yeah.
easy, but it is super simple.
Well, and like I went to university for math and I was going to be an actuary. And one of the things that happened is that as math got further to the top, it became simpler in a way. in that it was like there was less numbers involved and more theory. And it was like I felt like at the end they were going to give out one formula and that would like solve every problem mathematically in the universe.
The
And
formula of all formulas. Yeah.
but in this regard, that formula is love. You know, there's
Mhm.
not there's not an aspect of this program that doesn't involve love. What is service? Love. What is unity? Love. You know, like I mean, it's all about that. Okay, you got another question for me?
Yeah, I think, what I'm going to jump into because you brought up like transactional and unconditional
Yeah,
love. I want to jump into that one. That one's going to be a
yeah.
gooder. So I got in recovery, we often rely on social recovery capital, like community, sponsors, support, pillars, group accountability, loved ones. But how do we move from transactional relationships, which is I'm valued because I perform, comply, or stay sober, to grace-based relationships that reflect God's unmerited favor, where belonging or love isn't earned and connection isn't conditional?
And so, everything you just said there just makes me think of one word, and that word is service. And what what happened to me in my two-way prayer, like, it kind of goes in phases. I ask, I'm like, you ask a question in the morning, and then you kind of stream of consciousness answers from the universe, and you filter it through honest, pure, unselfish, and loving. And so one of the things that kept coming up is don't cherry pick your service, you know? And like, it's really easy to be chairing a meeting if you fucking love chairing meetings. It's, like doing service that we want before the opportunity even exists is somewhat self-serving. It's not self-seeking. It's like, okay, let's do something that everybody's going to go, Ryan, yay, Ryan. Oh, Milan, yay, Milan, you're great, Milan. And we just go home and we're like, look at us, man. I just like, everything's all perfect. Getting that call at 10 at night when the guy's like, hey, someone's chasing me with a baseball bat. Come help me out. And you're like in bed and you're like, I don't want to go.
Yeah.
That's fucking service, and maybe not always the smartest service, but but the thing is that being of need to someone who really needs a need, and being willing to not commoditize it through guilt or future
Mhm.
expectation, right? It for me that's been a big thing. Like inside my first round of steps, right? What I realized, like, my three biggest things were a lack of acceptance of others, a lack of tolerance of others, and anger. Like that. Let's throw honesty in there too, because I mean, I wasn't even able to understand that being so dishonest to myself. But the thing is that what I realized was that I was unhappy when people didn't play their part for what I did,
Mhm.
like, and so I could be really generous, but there come a day where Ryan, man, I'm gonna call you and be like, yo, bro, hey, bro, right now as I'm playing the I gave you so much card. I either need this from you or want this back in some other form, and guilt you into that response,
You're banking future favors.
bank in future favors.
Yeah.
And so what I realized with that was that first of all, you make other people feel like they're wrong,
Hmm.
which in the sense of my daughter, I feel like is really one of the most damaging things that I did was, make her feel wrong for not being who I wanted her to be, you
Hmm.
know? And then also too is that then you start almost forcing other people to be dishonest around you
Totally.
because if they're actually honest, you're not approving, you're rejecting, you might be scolding, you might be whatever, and so they're either not going to be around you or they're going to be dishonest around you.
Mhm.
And I just couldn't see before that how damaging it was, because my my addict ego was like, I knew the best way for everybody,
Mhm.
and so it's made me recalibrate my relationships, and also you know just recalibrate how I say things to people. And so I hope that answered the question. I might have
Oh
went on a
yeah,
bit of a
yeah, it was
tangent.
amazing. I love that you used. So I think our first few questions I was thinking about this has very much been focused on our personal experience with the concept of grace.
Yeah,
And I love that question you answered through the lens of service, right? It's
yeah,
that we're relating it to others, right? Which is, one of the most important parts of our program.
yeah. Well, I mean, like they say, like, really service is a posture of the heart. But then if that's the case, then aren't we just an instrument for grace at that point?
Totally.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I mean, if you think about, I'm going to use Jesus as the example, but the entire reason he came, right, was to save us. His entire life rooted in the concept of service.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So if I was to answer that question, I was thinking about that as you went into the service. So I think where this shows up most in my life, I mean, there's multiple different ways, but I would say easiest example would be, so the company that I work for, is super blessed to be in a director role. We very much believe that, the workforce and the coming workforce in this recovery field should have a lot of people with lived experience. So we employ a lot of people in long-term and early recovery. But when you have a staff base that's, 75% drug addicts and alcoholics, it creates for some interesting opportunities.
Yeah.
And finding that balance between, service and professionalism and all those things. And it would be really easy for me, that's as someone that's continually in a coaching mentorship role, a leadership role, to lean into the staff that are doing all the right things, right? That are showing up versus the ones, for lack of better words, as their defects
Mhm.
come up. You know, I don't know about you, but when I was a year sober, like the simple idea of understanding how my salary worked or how to properly manage my time off or how to have a healthy conversation with a coworker is not a skill I'd developed yet, right?
Yeah,
And I also spent, the previous 20 years running my own construction company that at one point was very successful, but it was very much a dictatorship,
yeah.
right?
That's exactly it. Yeah, it's a big change on
Yeah,
on conciliatory conversation.
totally, totally. So I think when I think about the idea of community and the opportunity for that to flow through, I think I'm super blessed to be in, my older brother calls it the idea. How did he word it once to me? I was venting to him about something. I think one of our other younger siblings, and he's just like, we're super blessed to work this program, Ryan. But he's like, you're also super blessed to be in a job where you're constantly confronted with confrontation and you
Yeah,
figure
your
out ways.
opportunities to grow are virtually endless.
And yeah, and think about what a gift that is,
Yeah.
right? And I think I could view that through the lens of, oh, this is so overwhelming, or how unfair is this, as opposed to, wow, like you really have a skill of handling difficult conversations.
Mhm.
Right? You've been given this gift to create a safe place for people to be themselves and be authentic and be imperfect.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, that's where that non-transactional piece, I think about it like drive-through, intimacy, right? I pull up to the window, I make my order, I pay you for my order, you give me the thing, right? I don't want relationships like that in my life, whether it's in the workplace or with my children or with my friends or in my intimate relationships. Like I want one where I'm constantly pouring in, not expecting to get anything in return. But
Mm.
but but you get so much in return because you get a person in front of you that's filled up.
What and one of the things, like that dawned on me, this was just about a month ago, but very much like we have serenity, right? Like grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Like
Mhm.
that state of serenity creates a state of acceptance inside you. Or at least it gives you a greater acceptance than you might have had before it, right? Like it might not make you bulletproof, but it definitely makes you a lot more life proof. But
Mhm.
the same thing happens with love. Like you don't love, you love inside yourself, create this state of love, and then everything you do contains love, you know? And so, very much like you were saying, where you're not expecting something back, that's because it's just actually you loving.
Mhm.
Like your very action is love at that point.
Totally. When you think about like universal principles, like we brought up before too, like that idea of whether you want to give like the simple magnet metaphor, right, or the cyclical nature of it, right? If I'm constantly saying to God or to the universe, gimme, 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 that's the response that it's going to give me as well, right? If I'm constantly pouring love, it's going to pour love back into me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and if also like if you're grateful, like if you're grateful, it creates it somehow for me it feels like it completes the circle.
Yeah, and if we want to dive into like brain chemistry and all those good things like CBT and DBT and all those good things that we learn in our recovery outside of the 12-step rooms. But that's just simply like we know like our reticulate, oh, I'm not even gonna say the word right, reticulating or reticular activating system. Like, if I talk to you about a red car, the same way that we
Mm.
talked about Grace earlier, okay, red Porsche, you're probably gonna go see five red Porsches the rest of today. Whereas
Yeah,
if you're pouring in that concept of gratitude, 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 grace, 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 your brain is then looking for opportunities to find gratitude, right? To feel gratitude. Yeah, it's a blessed way that like we've been designed that the things that we focus on like continue to grow in our lives.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Are you ready for another question?
Yes,
Or is
sir.
it your turn to ask a question? I can't remember. I
No,
got
I
a
think
little.
I just asked you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. The 12 by 12 notes that step two is the point where we admit a power greater than ourselves can restore us to sanity. Where in your life today are you experiencing a strength that you know did not come from your own willpower? Where in your life today are you experiencing a strength that you know did not come from your own willpower?
Oh God, all of them.
I thought that might be the answer, but
Yeah, I mean, I don't take ownership of, and this is very much something that I have to actively practice and thank God for things like humility and
Mhm.
his wisdom because uh um like the, my life and the way that I was raised, but very much like an egocentric, ego-based me and the thing was too like I had all this evidence in my life prior to when, addiction, I gave all those things away to addiction to say that, well, it is me, you know. I was running a multi-million dollar construction company that was solely I built, right? Right? No one helped me with it. I built it into this super successful thing. I had won multiple different bodybuilding shows and things like that, all based off all the hard work I did in the gym, right? I had these two perfect photo shoot ready children all the time that I created, right? Can't you see how amazing Ryan is?
yeah.
So, right? So it's like, so I think like for me, and that's a really dangerous place for me to get into from whether it's the Range Rover or the outfits or all those different things. And I think that 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 can easily rob me, right? So the moment that I start to I take ownership of any of the strengths that I have, I think that's a dangerous space, and I'm speaking from personal experience
Mhm.
that I can jump into, and I have to constantly surrender and give God all the glory for the things that I have in my life. Something a simple one, I would say, like I'm a very self-disciplined person. Uh, but I think that's a gift that I've been given because I haven't always been that way. And that could be anything from like the strength to get up at 4 in the morning. Like I'm always up at that time, but that time is a very special time for me when the rest of the world is quiet and I get to connect with God.
Yeah.
And
I get up super early too, dude.
yeah,
I
and
get it.
people always ask me like, how do you do it? And I always say, I don't know.
How do you
God,
not do it?
God gave me the strength. And I said, like, but like the gifts that I get because of that, to like walk into my day emotionally regulated, to walk in my day
Mhm,
feeling grateful, to walk into my day knowing that I've taken care of my body, my mind, and my heart. Yeah.
mhm. I love that. I am, yeah, that's amazing. So, where in my life today am I experiencing a strength that I know did not come from my own willpower? I mean, I would say, yeah, like my entire freedom, you know, my entire freedom was not hatched from a great Milan moment. It was not hatched from my amazing strength. I spent 17 and a half years trying to show how powerful I was, controlling it, switching drugs, switching alcohols, blah, blah, blah. Like that chapter more on alcoholism, that first 2 pages. I was like, haha, that's me. Just, I never tried to drink like a gentleman. I just tried to drink so I didn't hurt people, like that was
Mhm.
it. And that's not something I'm proud of. That's just, the reality of what it was. But there's so much today that I know I'm experiencing that isn't because I made that happen, you know, and getting out of the way and being grateful for it. Someone said to me just a few days ago, he said, people say, oh, do the next right thing. He's like, that's too complicated. He's like, how about just do the right thing? And I thought, yeah. I'm like, that's a way better way to think about it. Because people will be like, well, what's the next thing? And trust me,
Totally.
the universe will present the next thing. Just do the right thing, you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
And so for me, yeah, it's been a journey of learning how to turn my will over and to understand what that is exactly. A good friend of mine introduced me to like the God box, and I don't know if you've ever used those or used those with your sponsees. Have you ever?
Are we talking like a gratitude jar kind of idea?
Nope. Nope. So I have a little tiny box, like sunglasses came in it, got a little slit in the top. For
Okay.
anybody starting out who has any trouble understanding what their will is or their higher power's will is, it's like get up in the morning and anything that's bothering you, what your wife's saying to you, that your dog's standing outside in the cold a little longer than you want to, and you write that down and you put it in the God box and you're not allowed to think about it anymore.
I
Like
love it. I love it.
your anxiety about the future. And it's just like it provides a beautiful physical representation of surrendering. Because once you put it in that box, it's like it's illegal to think of it like, nope, and you know what you wrote. So, and it's amazing to be like, oh, that's really what that surrender's like. And and what you'll find is that you'll start your day with like 15 things a morning to write. But that's
Mhm.
okay because it's still better to start identifying what it is. But then eventually you're like, oh, I don't have those other things because I can't think about them anymore.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you start your day in this place of humility and surrender. It's interesting.
Hmm.
I was super blessed to go to Mexico for a couple weeks over the Christmas holidays. I take my sober date's December 20th, and
Yep.
so I take my chip out there. And there's an amazing Alano club in the area that I go to, and my new sponsor now lives out there, and
Nice.
we did a
Where in
step
Mexico?
Puerto Vallarta in
Okay.
the Romantica zone area. It's just this beautiful, special area that's become super special to me. But when we were out there, we did my step five in person. And and as we continue to work through some of the other steps, the big theme that came up in my five was this unwillingness to let go of specifically a couple people that had hurt me, right? And 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 I was just struggling, and he was gave me the gentle nudge of just like, hey, I suggest that you like pray for them. And then I was at this men's group at my church when I got back, and I brought up the same topic in the men's group because it's a really vulnerable space that men get into. And at the end of the group, one of the other men prayed for all of us, and I said, hey, pray for me and my kids, and for the challenging relationship that I have with their mom. But the way that he worded the prayer was, and remind Ryan that God loves his kid's mom just as much as he loves him. And it
Ooh.
fucking hit me like, right? And I remember in my head, I'm thinking like, fuck you, buddy. Like,
Mm.
and but because it was so true, right? And I
Mm.
th to bring that back to the God box, it was like, so I had after these two experiences, it's like, oh man, this is speaking to me, and I gotta let this shit go. But I don't have the strength to let it go. So I had actually Chat GPT help me create like this beautiful background with one of the pictures I had from Mexico of the beach, and just write me a prayer. And it's my screensaver on my phone. So it's like every time I open my phone, I read it, and it's just this simple like, God, I bring you the names, memories, and wounds I've carried too long. I release my resentment, not because it was okay, but because you are greater than my pain. Thank you for
Oh.
freeing my heart to love again. And it's like this thing
Ooh.
that, and sometimes I'm reading it and I'm reading it with a whole bunch of frustration. Sometimes I'm reading it full of gratitude. And it's this thing that constantly releasing it, the same idea that you said with that God box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I love that. That fits totally with it. Yeah, you need to put those people in your God box.
100%.
Then you're just like not
But
allowed. You just won't be
yes,
allowed. Like,
I know, and we were talking about it at the beginning, right? When you talk about the things that you haven't surrendered, like those things cause me the most frustration, hurt, pain in my life,
mm,
and it's this thing that I surrender, then I take it back, I put it in the God box, and I pull it back out, and
mm. But I
but
swear though, there's something to do with the physical
physical,
representation.
yeah,
I mean, like, because once you put like once you let go, it's no touchies, no touchies.
Mhm.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
and so I found it super useful, and the people I know that have done it that I've recommended it to, it's been good for them. You know.
I love it. I totally agree. I mean, there's plenty of evidence and science to prove all those different things. Even I think about
Mm,
the idea of like goals, right? There's all this evidence to say like writing your goals down. Like
mm,
there's all this proof to show that, that you'll have I don't know what the actual status, so don't quote me on it, but it's just
mm.
like people who rate their goals down are 70 or 80% more successful with their goals than people that
It's
don't. Right?
proven that writing them down creates a puzzle for your brain to solve, and your brain instantly solves puzzles that you don't even know it's working on.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah. How blessed
absolutely.
are we?
I was really big on that when I bu- back, I was kind of, into my business a little bit too much, in my addiction, like there's good and there's bad, but then there's unbalanced,
Mhm.
like it's really easy to put everything into work, but then where's your family? Where's your heart? Where's your health? You know?
Totally, brother. Totally.
Yeah.
I have a laminated card in my um, wallet that I think is probably like the sixth or seventh treatment center that I
Hmm.
went to. We had to write like, it was kind of like our goals of recovery. Why do we want to stay sober? What we hope to get. And there's five things on that list. And I've switched it from wallets to man purses to the backs of my
Hmm.
phone and all these things over the last years and years. And it's ruffled up and it's beaten up. I've had to relaminate it a few times, but every single one of those things I now have,
Yeah.
and so much more, right?
That's amazing. And it's amazing too, just to keep it as a reminder for faith.
Totally,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah,
Okay, you got another question for me?
I do, brother. I do. This one I think is an important one. Yeah, for things that I think for people that are in early recovery, but also for people with long-term recovery, because I think there's this culture that sometimes gets created in a recovery circles. So here we go. So if grace is God's unmerited favor, how do the hierarchies we often create in recovery, such as clean time, big book knowledge, leadership roles, or even material success, quietly undermine grace by turning worth into a ranking system rather than a gift?
Ooh, you know, first sentence I want to respond to that is clean time doesn't mean recovery to me. Like I know people that have more recovery than I'll have years left to live, and I wouldn't take their recovery with a 10-foot pole. And the reason I wouldn't is because they don't see freedom and love and forgiveness and surrender in their hearts. And so to me, I can get something from everybody's shares. I think that the fellowship for me provides provides opportunity for us to learn from each other. Like, I always say the saying, I don't have to invent the wheel to like driving a car. And I don't have to keep making the same mistakes if somebody else has made them and they can share their growth in the share, right? I don't think that that makes a hierarchy to me. It just makes me happy that they're part of my community. I do see that some people definitely, uh, you know, do create some kind of mental priority. But I mean, you also hear that the newcomer is the most important person at a meeting. And why is that? Because it gives us opportunity for service,
Mhm.
and so I would hope that in my life right now, that people see people see me acting gracefully towards other people that are coming in, because I certainly don't try to put myself on any kind of pedestal. Like, when I'm working with my sponsees, we're walking the path together. I'm not like, hey, you're way down there. Hey, down there. I can see you down there. Like, um, I just try to, like I try to help them get their spiritual awakening and set them on their own feet. And so, yeah, like I don't, and so also when I say that clean time doesn't mean recovery, like I don't see the grace being handed out to somebody who's gotten 50 chips. You know, I can see the grace of freedom sometimes more in some person's eyes after 2 weeks, than 10 years. And so I think really when you talk about it being unearned and unmerited, I see evidence of that in the rooms more so than anything, you know. Um, but I still will stand by what I said earlier, is that I think there's so many people with grace in their lives who just are not having the gratitude to bring about the awareness of it.
Mhm.
Like there's so many people where it's like, and you got so much to be grateful for. So much has happened for you. And, they're more mad about the person in the line at the grocery store than they are about this beautiful life we get to live. So I don't know. I hope that answers it.
Absolutely, brother. Yeah, I think you brought a lot of different levels of awareness to that, and I think just as human beings, we naturally do that in our brains. Like we create little ranking systems, we compare ourselves, all those different things, and I think maybe unknowingly sometimes it just naturally happens. And I'm not just defaulting to 12-step rooms. I think this happens in all recovery circles, but I think it can be as simple as, if we wait and have like the token person with 25 years sober to share last all the time, and drop the mic. Well, I think that creates a hierarchy, right? Because this person's message matters so much, as opposed
Mm,
to asking, the guy or gal who's got 6 months sober to share last. I think
mm,
simple things like that happen, right? Or you go out to the parking lot and you see someone driving a new luxury car, and it's like, oh wow, like look at how blessed they are. They must be doing really well. God really loves them, right?
yeah.
What, he's only got 3 years sober, he's got 5 years sober. That's a gift of recovery, 20 years sober in a nice vehicle and a nice home. And
Mm,
I don't think that there's any problem with material success, but
mm,
I think when we equate that to like the concept of more deserving or more
mm,
worthy is when we get into that dangerous space. Um, and I think it undermines that opportunity for true healing and true forgiveness, like we talked about earlier. Does that make sense when I say that?
absolutely.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. So I think, and 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 I also think that hierarchies exist for a good reason sometimes, right?
mm,
Like I think about, we were talking about my work earlier, but we have a hierarchical structure to the
yeah,
units,
yeah,
right? But the reason for it is this concept of social learning, right?
yeah,
How do I learn to be a leader? Well, I learn it when it's role modeled to me.
exactly.
And how do I continue to be a good leader is when I role model it, i.e., to the newcomer, right?
Yeah.
So it's like finding that really healthy balance. Is it based in ego? Is it based in everyone come see how awesome I am? Or
Hmm.
is it based in the idea of service?
Yeah, and that's the whole thing is that, man, I know there's people I have stuff to learn. Like wisdom is a real thing. Like
Hmm.
wisdom is like knowledge practiced and practiced until you have the discernment to know what works in life.
Hmm.
And uh and there's, quite frankly, there's freedom that I see in other people that it's not a jealousy, it's an understanding that they've learned something that I haven't, you
Totally.
know? And it doesn't mean that they're better than me. It means that they know more about me, about that thing. And that's and like if I can put my ego aside enough to be open-minded, then I can learn something there without having to feel the pain that maybe that 100 failures cost them to get that. Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Um, so I've got to wrap things up here. And is there anything you want to say to everybody before we wrap things up? First of all, I'd like to say thank you for coming. I really
Thank
enjoyed
you,
our
brother.
time
Thank
together.
you.
I think this is the start of a great friendship.
100%.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I guess what I want to say is thank you for your recovery. Thank you for your listeners' recovery, and just thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit of my story, but also allow God and His grace to show up through me. And I hope something landed with somebody.
yeah. It was. I really enjoyed our time. Once we shut this down, maybe we could find another date here. But everybody out there, thank you for tuning in. Shout out to Singapore. Tune in next episode for more recovery fun. Bye bye, everybody. Love you. Please help us help others. If you like what you've seen here today, please subscribe and share this podcast and help us get to 100 followers. We're looking for interaction with our audience. So please email recoveryfreedomrising@gmail.com or contact Milan South Okanagan Starcic on Facebook with questions, topic suggestions, or just comments. We'd love to hear from you.